film I viewed on Shudder. Shudder, the all horror streaming service that you can subscribe to separately, or if you have Amazon Prime subscription, another $4.99 a month gets you Shudder. This was a film from 2011 entitled The Awakening. This is a British horror film, a British ghost story really, starring Rebecca Hall as a woman who is a debunker. She is somebody who goes to seances and pulls the wigs off people and debunks and exposes charlatans for what they are. She is called to a orphanage, country estate orphanage, to orphanage boarding school to investigate the ghost of a little boy that a lot of the students there claim to be seeing. This was quite good, I thought. Up to a point, I thought this was quite good for me. It's very atmospheric. It has jump scares, but it's not about the jump scare. It's not about the shaky camera work. It's not about bad CGI. Though it has all of that somewhere. It's not about any of that. Most movies, when I start to see the shaky stuff or the jump scares or the CGI, I just check out and I'm like, okay, I'm done. This one builds a wonderful sense of atmosphere and character. It's a British film, so you know the acting is going to be good. You will recognize about half of this cast. I can't name them all, but their faces, though, you'll say, oh, her, Imelda Staunton from the Harry Potter movies is in this. And the male lead, whose name escapes me, has been in a lot of things. Performances are outstanding. The atmosphere is excellent. This reminds me of the kind of movies I saw on Boston TV stations as a kid that made me fall in love with 70s British horror. You're in a big old estate. You're in a big old house or building or whatever. And you spend so much time there. And it's shot crazily with wide shots on occasion so that you really get a sense of place. You feel like you're there. You feel like you could smell the joint. And it's basically, they send all the kids home. All but one of the kids are sent home, and a skeleton staff while this woman, Rebecca Hall, investigates what's going on. And she's ready to just disprove it. It's a hoax. It's one of the kids playing tricks. It's the pipes. It's whatever. And enough time passes and enough tests or experiments are conducted where she starts to think, yeah, this is real. And where does it go from there? And how does she fix it? What is the reason it happens? Is there human involvement? There are some nefarious herrings that may be red or certainly salmon colored, and it's just really creepy. It really makes you feel like you're there. Yes, it has a couple of jump scares, which I always find annoying, but it wasn't like most modern horror. I've seen recent horror movies that are nothing but jump scares, and after the fifth one, you're like, okay, this is all you're gonna do? It does have some CGI. It has some dodgy CGI. It has CGI in a moment that I really wish it didn't have it because it just seems so lame and took me out of the movie. But again, the character, the pacing, the music, the decor, it's one of those films that's shot, I always say, you know, if you're going to shoot a film in color and turn that color down to where it's almost black and white, just make it black and white. It was one of those films where the color is very muted, but that also fits the tone, fits the period. This is set in the 20s, I think, 30s. Old-timey days, pre-color TV. Definitely no Pac-Man watches where this film was set. And it has aspects of ghost stories that I've always appreciated since I was a kid. Something happens in the past, something really horrible happens in the past in an era where all of us now think things like that didn't happen back then, which to me makes it all the more horrifying. Think the movie from '81, Ghost Story. What happens that sets off the chain of events in that? A lot of films reminded me of. It also reminds me of the British have this tradition. I don't know how far back it goes. I really only know about the television aspect of this. A ghost story at Christmas. They would often, and I think still do, the BBC would run these films that were, I think, adaptations generally of M.R. James stories that were set in the past about somebody dealing with a ghost. And The Woman in Black, that was remade into a film with Daniel Radcliffe a few years ago. Pretty good film, I might add. Was done for the BBC originally in I want to say 1983, 85, somewhere in there. That has recently been released on disc, and I highly recommend that. Those Ghost Story at Christmas, this felt a lot like one of those to me, where it's very quiet, it's not, you know, an action movie masquerading as a horror film, and it really draws you in. I was really with this film up to a point. Did not mind the pace, did not mind anything about it. Even the flourishes of CG and jump scares, I was like, I don't care for that, but the rest of this I'm digging, so I'm okay. The further it went, it did some things where if you thought about it too much, it might bother you a little bit. I would say don't think too hard about this movie. And there were some things toward the end that I thought were a little silly, but overall, it was a film that surprised me, and I'm always very appreciative of a film that will surprise me at this point after as much as I've seen. And so many who just are very content to go over the same ground again and again. And it's really elevated by how good this cast is, how good Rebecca Hall and Staunton and that guy whose name I can't remember, but as soon as you see him, you'll be like, oh yeah, that guy, are so good at this. And even the child actors in this are very good. So if this is something you can seek out, it's not, I want to say, whether is it graphic or not? There are moments of violence in this. The incident that sets off all of this years earlier is pretty gruesome and unpleasant. But overall, this is really bad atmosphere. It's on Shudder. I have to presume if this was released in 2011, it must be available on disc somewhere. I didn't look to see if it's on any other streaming services, which I think, for better or worse, is how most people watch everything now. But I think if you like ghost stories, and if you like movies like The Others, which I loved, or The Orphanage, which I loved, or other recent films that are sort of, there was another one I can't, if I could remember the title, I'd tell you right now, but I do no research. I just have my notes, you know. At any rate, The Awakening from 2011, I say give it a shot.